Hi, and welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown as we examine the three key matchups for the New York Giants in Sunday's game against the Carolina Panthers in Munich, Germany. I'm Paul Dottino. Now, one of the Giants' usual starters, wide receiver Darius Slayton, did not make the flight Thursday night to go overseas. He is in concussion protocol. You remember he got rocked in the Washington Commanders game last weekend. He was not outside at practice during the course of the week, so he's obviously in the early stages of the protocol, and so it'll be a second-year pro, Jalen Hyatt, who is going to have to step up in that role as the right side Giants wide receiver, if you will, opposite on the other side where Malik Neighbors will usually play, as the Giants try to get their passing game going against Carolina. The Giants also mentioning late on Thursday that starting left tackle Chris Hubbard came down with an illness, although he was in the locker room following practice and appeared to be doing all right. We will see exactly where that lands him in terms of Sunday's game. Joshua Ezeudu would be the other answer at left tackle if Hubbard is unable to go. Also, to mention is that head coach Brian Daboll looks as though he may wait as long as possible with optimism that both kicker Graham Gano and punter Jamie Gillen, off of their respective hamstring injuries, may be able to kick on Sunday against the Panthers. The one other injury of note to discuss and to keep an eye on is a gunner Bryce Ford Wheaton on special teams. Remember, the Giants earlier this week released Nick McLeod, who was one of their very productive gunners. So now Bryce Ford Wheaton has a little more pressure put on him if he is able to play in this weekend's game. He has a sore Achilles. So just to finish up the state of the Giants, they have lost 4 in a row, and they are 2-7 on the season. They will be having their bye week following this trip to Germany. And as Dexter Lawrence relayed to the media in the locker room on Thursday before the trip, he said, look, you do not want to go into the bye week with a loss because you have to sit around for quite a long time before you get back on the field and make things right again. Certainly can understand Dexter Lawrence's perspective, especially with the way things have gone for the Giants, not only this season, but in recent times. So that kind of gets you caught up on the state of the Giants. As far as this matchup goes, the Giants have beaten Carolina in each of the last 2 meetings back in 2021 and in 2022. Both games were played at MetLife Stadium. All right, let's take a look at the state of the Carolina Panthers. They are 2-7. Now, they snapped a 5-game skid last weekend against the New Orleans Saints, 23-22 in a squeaker, a game that came down to the final 2 minutes when Chuba Hubbard ran for a 16-yard touchdown, and then the Saints got the ball back and they were unable to convert a 4th down and gave up the ball. They had not threatened to get into scoring territory, and that was the end of that game. The game-winning drive by the Saints, by the way, Bryce Young was at the controls. They did get the benefit of a big pass interference penalty, which helped them move downfield. It was a 60-plus yard scoring drive. And again, Hubbard, with a 16-yard burst, actually took the ball into the end zone. Bryce Young is going to be the starting quarterback this week. He started the last couple of games. He had started some games earlier. Then Andy Dalton came in, played for about a month. Bryce Young is back in there at the controls. We all know young quarterback had his troubles. All right, he has yet to win back-to-back starts in the National Football League. This is his second season since the Panthers drafted him in the first round last year. So we will see exactly what he brings to the table. As far as key injuries, and there are really a bunch of them. 4 key injuries to keep an eye on with the Panthers. Left tackle Ike Ekwonu has a bad ankle. Does not look very optimistic that he's going to be able to go. So veteran Brady Christensen would have to make the start against the Giants. More on him later. Adam Thielen, veteran wide receiver. I believe he's 33 years old at this point. You guys all remember him from all his years with the Vikings. Well, he's been out of the lineup since week 3 when he got injured with a sore hamstring. Does look like he is probably going to play against the Giants. Very crafty route runner, has really good hands, and you always have to keep an eye on him. Jonathan Brooks, 2nd round draft pick out of Texas. He tore his ACL last November, and the Panthers took a gamble on him in the 2nd round. They figured there was a chance he'd be back by the 3rd or 4th week of the season. Well, that did not happen. We're much further deeper into the campaign now, already in November. But he has been practicing. They did activate him to their 53-man roster the other day, and he's hopeful that he's going to get a chance to take some snaps against the Giants. Now, why is that important? Well, because last year, before he got hurt, he ran for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns and averaged over 6 yards a carry. In fact, in his 3 seasons or so at Texas, remember he had been a backup his first 2 seasons with the Longhorns. In each of his 3 seasons with Texas, he averaged over 6 yards a carry. Jonathan Brooks is a very talented running back. So we will see. Major injury coming out of school. You remember many years ago, Willis McGahee of the Miami Hurricanes had badly torn up his knee in college, and then wound up having some productivity in the National Football League with the Buffalo Bills. So in any event, just keep an eye on Jonathan Brooks. The other key player is edge rusher DJ Wonnum. He has been on PUP because of an injured quad. Did practice this week. He says he's ready to go and waiting for the Panthers to put him in the lineup. Wonnum, in his first 4 years in the league, was with the Minnesota Vikings. Twice had 8 sacks in a season, including last year. Well, the Panthers brought him in because, as we know, Brian Burns was traded from the Panthers, unable to get a contract extension from them with a year left on his deal. They traded him to the Giants, who were amenable to giving him a contract extension, and they did. Wonnum came over from the Vikings to supposedly be the key edge-rushing passing threat that Burns was in the scheme of the Carolina defense. But to this point, Wonnum had not been able to play because of an injured quad. He seems to be chomping at the bit and raring to go. So it is, at the very least, very possible that the Giants will have to see Wonnum on Sunday in Munich. All right, so that's the state of the Panthers as we go into this game. Now, as we look at the 3 key matchups in particular, I'm going to cheat just a little bit here because one of the key matchups actually has a duality to it. So I'm kind of going to give you 4 key matchups, but we're going to start with one that has 2 in 1. It's a twofer, right? We go with cornerbacks J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson against Giants wide receivers Malik Nabers and Jalen Hyatt. Now, you'll understand why we're doing this as I go through these individual pairings. First of all, we know that the Giants love to get the ball to Nabers. In fact, on the season, and briefly, He's got 200-yard games, tied for third in the NFL with 55 catches, 15th in the league at 557 yards. Now, he's only averaging 10 yards a catch. We know that. The Giants need more yak yardage out of him. He's only got 3 touchdowns so far this year. They need a whole lot more out of him there, too. But here's the thing. He right now has been the focal point of the Giants offense. And who is playing opposite him but J.C. Horn? Now, Horn actually leads the National Football League amongst qualifying cornerbacks in allowing the lowest completion percentage of passes targeted at him. Well under 50%. In fact, as I go through my notes, Horn has only allowed 44% of passes targeted his way to be completed. He is a terrific cover corner. Always has been since he came out of school a few years ago. Now, if you look at the defensive Panthers stat sheet, what you will find is that he's got 9 passes defensed, which is tied for 6th most in the NFL. This is a guy who, in all honesty, you don't want to challenge. He was a former number 1 pick back in 2021. The problem being, of course, is that you know he's going to be locked up on your best player. The Giants will undoubtedly not shy away from neighbors. We all know how important he is to their offense, so they're still going to go at him. Question is, how much do you go at him? Because Horn has such terrific coverage skills. Now, the one interesting part about it is that even though teams tend to shy away from Horn, he has given up 4 touchdown passes this year. So he can be beaten on occasion and certainly in a big spot. But I do think the Giants will try to see, and this would be a great week for Jalin Hyatt to step up. Because Hyatt on the season, and folks, I'd almost have to get a magnifying glass for this because he's basically been a forgotten man in the Giants passing game. 1 reception for 6 yards. He's barely played. And when he has played, they haven't looked at him. Now, this would be a great week to get him jump-started. And this is why I'm doing the duality in this matchup. Mike Jackson came over in a trade from Seattle. He's given up 4 touchdown passes this year on 38 completions. Now, the 38 completions on targets thrown at him is tied for 5th most in the National Football League. He's given up 68% of targets thrown his way and has given up the 7th most passing yards in the NFL this year at 466. So you see what I'm talking about? Teams know how good Horn is. They're still going to take an occasional shot at him, sure. But they know he's really good. And with his proficiency for batting down balls and knocking them away, why would you force feed him if you know that Mike Jackson is having a very difficult time and struggling at the other corner? It makes common sense to pump the ball that way and go at him. Of course, again, with the Giants, Hyatt has not been a big part of their offense. So this would be breaking with their style to this point to do so. But what a wonderful time for Hyatt to step up and break out of his box. Now, if you're thinking about Wan'Dale Robinson, Chow Smith-Wade, 5th-round draft pick, taken this year, is their nickelback. Just so you know. Not much to say there, because I think, honestly, the more important matchups are the 2 corners against the 2 outside receivers. All right. So that is kind of dual matchup number 1. Okay? I cheated a little bit. I'm sorry. but I had to. Key matchup number 2. Giants edge rusher Brian Burns, the former Panther who came over from the trade that we alluded to a few minutes ago, against Brady Christensen. Now, why is this matchup important? Well, let's talk about the Panthers side of it first. Christensen has started at least one game at all 5 positions on the offensive line in the NFL over the 4 years that he's been in the league. He was primarily brought into the league as a tackle/guard. This year, he's had 3 starts at center, the most at any position in 2024. But he's been forced to move out now to left tackle with the questionable status of Ike Ekwonu, who had been playing left tackle for the Panthers until he got injured. Christensen is a bit over 300 pounds, about 6'5" or so. He is not a power blocker and actually pretty good with his technique and known more for his run blocking than he is his pass blocking. Brian Burns, well, give you a little stat check on him. Has 5 sacks so far this year. So he certainly is within range of having his double digits that he'd like to achieve. We know he's done double digits before in Carolina. Would love to have double digits in his first season with the Giants. Second on the team with 11 quarterback hits. Believe it or not, he actually leads the Giants in passes defended with 7 because he often bats them down at the line of scrimmage. So keep an eye on that matchup because I do expect that Brian Burns, even though he has said that he's going to treat this just as another game, he also added that there was a little bit of a personal angle too. He does still talk to many of his former Panthers teammates. He particularly said he doesn't talk to them about football. He just talks to them as friends. But you got to think that he's certainly going to be playing a little extra hard. Not that he needs to, because Brian Burns, who has been fighting lower body soreness throughout the course of the last month, has really been one of the better players on this Giants roster this season. So anyway, Christensen against Burns. I have his key matchup number 2 in this game. Key matchup number 3, it's got to be Chuba Hubbard, the running back, who is top 10 in the NFL in yards after contact, against middle linebacker Bobby Okereke. Now, Hubbard, we already told you he had the winning touchdown last weekend against the Saints. On the season, has a couple of 100-yard games against Las Vegas and Cincinnati. 665 rushing yards this season, 5th most in the National Football League, tied for 10th in the NFL at 5 yards a carry. He has rushed for 5 touchdowns. To be perfectly frank with you, the Panthers value him so much. He is such a focal point of what they want to do and need to do. They gave him a fat 4-year contract extension this week, in spite of the fact that they did draft Jonathan Brooks. But as we told you, he's coming off that serious ACL injury as he comes out of school. Now, Bobby Okereke, in the last 2 weeks, he's been the most active that he had been throughout the course of the season. 9 tackles against Washington. 2 weeks ago, a season-high 14 tackles against Pittsburgh. In fact, those 2 games are his 2 highest tackle totals of any individual week during 2024. So you can see how he is picking up his game and doing everything he can to try to solidify the Giants' rush defense, which has just had so much trouble this year. They are still ranked 28th in the NFL in rush defense, giving up over 140 yards a game. They know they don't want to do that. Defensive coordinator Shane Bowen continues to say that while most of the running defensive plays are solid, there always seems to be 4 or 5 very big running plays that burn the Giants. It's either a missed tackle, and the Giants right now rank 4th in missed tackles on the season with 68, according to Sports Radar, which is not a good number, or there's a missed run fit. In fact, Coach Bowen also saying that one of the things you have to do is understand there's no such thing as a pretty tackle. Just get the guy down. Make sure you maintain your balance, you keep your eyes up, and do whatever you can to get the guy down. Don't worry about if it's a picture-perfect tackle, but you just have to stop him and make sure you're not giving up all that extra yardage, as people have just been not only getting through into creases and holes in the Giants defense, they've been rambling for a lot of extra yardage. And that is so unnecessary and really caused the Giants an awful lot of grief. Now, the Big Blue Breakdown is going to return with its game balls and gassers. That will be on Monday morning. We will analyze the Giants' offense, defense, and special teams and tell you who deserves game balls and who deserves gassers based on the game in Munich against the Carolina Panthers. I'm Paul Dottino. We will see you again on the Big Blue Breakdown, part of the New York Giants on SI, YouTube, and Media Network. So long, everybody.